Welcome to the Choices That Made Us Us, where we're going to see how people became who they wanted to be. My name is Andrew Hooper, and today we have the legendary Chris Hooper. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Most important question of the day is, what do you have for lunch? But you didn't have anything for lunch or breakfast. So what did you have for dinner?
I had Swedish meatballs.
Wow, sounds amazing.
They were.
So what do you do for work, and how did you choose that? What have you previously, done for work, and how did you choose all that? What got you to the work that you're doing today?
All right, well, right now I'm a full-time student at Stevenson University studying cybersecurity and digital forensics, and I'll be graduating in May. So minus Thanksgiving, I'm T-minus 4 weeks as of the recording of this podcast. And yeah, so I'm doing an internship at Exelon in the Cybersecurity Operations Center as a analyst. So that's what I'm doing now. And the journey is actually kind of interesting on how I got there. So way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth in 2000 and what was that, 13, 14, something like that. I had a friend of mine at school. And me and him started DJing together. We started doing like Indian events. He was Indian, so we did a bunch of like Indian events. And then me and him picked up a couple of other places. And so we were doing, I mean, we weren't like doing a ton of stuff, but we were doing some stuff, and, it was fun. And, we did that for all of high school and a little bit after. And while I was doing that, I was coming across these videos on YouTube of some people doing these really cool like lighting rigs for like high school homecomings and stuff. And I was like, wow, that stuff's like super cool. And so I talked to my partner, and I was like, hey man, we should buy some lights because we would look cooler, it would like up our production value, and we could charge more. And he's like, yeah, man, that sounds cool. And I was like, all right, well, the lights are like $800 a piece. So and you need at least two. So $1,600 for a high school student is like a ton of money. So I was like, hey, let's go see if we can rent these lights. We'll like rent them for a weekend, screw around with them and see if we like them. And if we think that they're sick and it's something that we want to do, then, we can buy them. We can look at them buying them. He's like, yeah, that sounds cool. So hopped onto Google and started searching around for these lights and who rented them, and like one of the first results came up, and I gave them a call, and I was like, hey, I'm looking to rent these lights, is that something you all do? And the guy was like, unfortunately, like, we don't have any in stock for rental, but we're dealers, so if you wanted to buy some, we could work out something with that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And right before I hung up, I asked, I was like, hey, by any chance, do you all accept volunteers? And he stopped and thought for a second, and then said, why don't you send in your resume and come in for an interview on Monday? And I was like, sure. And so went in that Monday, talked to him and his partner, and basically got hired. Well, I mean, as a volunteer. They were like, sure, yeah. We'd love to have you. And I was like, all right, awesome. And worked for them for like a week, and they had this intern kid who I kind of made look really bad by accident because he was always on his phone and just like not getting work done. And here I am not getting paid, and I'm just, doing work. And my first week I was sitting there with this other shop guy building out this like LED board thing. And so pretty much after a week, they were like, hey, like, we're going to, like, you're doing a really good job. We want to start paying you. We want you to be on the payroll. And I was like, great. Yeah. Cause this is a lot of work. So I wasn't making a ton of money. I was making a little bit of money. But yeah, so I started doing that, and, worked there for a year, and I learned a bunch of different things. I learned, about power and power distribution. I learned about LED walls. I learned about lighting and how lighting data works, and this lighting console called the MA2 which actually turned out to be really good that I learned that one specifically because it is kind of the industry standard. Pretty much any tour that you see nowadays is either running the MA2 or now the MA3 is out. So you'll start to see those a lot more in the wild. So I learned all those skills, and then after a year of being there, there have been some disagreements between me and the boss, and just like the way he ran things, and some other stuff, and so I decided to leave, and so I quit. And that was February of 2016, I want to say. 2016. Yeah, I think it was 2016. Yeah, February 2016. And or 2017. It's February 2017. Sorry. So left there and opened up my own company. Like I filed the paperwork to open up my own company, and I called. Well, I reached out to somebody who I had met while I was working at that company. It's like an external contractor that we had done a few like jobs with music festivals and stuff. And I said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. I worked with so and so company, and I left there, but I'm looking to stay in the industry. Do you have any recommendations on, do you have any work that I could work with you on, or do you have any recommendations?" And he told me about this company, Rhino Staging, that he was working for at the time. And so I applied and started working there. And I was doing bigger shows with them. It was just stagehand work, so it wasn't like I was leading crews or doing anything really important. But as I worked there, my relationship with that other guy grew. And, he started, like showing me some stuff and, just generally, talking to each other. And he was a nice guy. We're actually still friends. And I started doing master electrician jobs because I had a very good understanding of, power and lighting distribution at this point. I mean, I didn't know everything, but I knew a good bit. And so I started doing master electrician jobs. And basically, I'd make sure that everybody had the power they needed. I would tie in 3-phase cam block power for, whatever concert came in to their power distros. And I would help with that kind of stuff. And, with that, you take on a little bit more of a leadership role. For those who aren't in the industry, the kind of chain of command is that you have like your tour manager or your production manager. And the 3 leads report to him. So you have like your L1 or your like lead lighting designer person. You have your lead video guy, and then you have your lead audio guy. And the way that the lighting chain works is that the master electrician reports to the lead lighting guy, and the master electrician is pretty much in charge of making sure that the rig is where it needs to be. It's all powered up, all the connections are correct, and then the lighting designer will program everything on the console. And so I was kind of in this role where I was leading stagehands to get the rig set up, and then I was making sure everything was working, and then troubleshooting with the LD. And so that kind of, that along with me knowing the console a little bit led to me getting recommended to start doing some jobs where I was the L1. And so I was doing that for a bunch of different stuff. I mean, I've done anything from like small local bands to I ran lights for Chris Rock one time. I loaded in for Bruno Mars, Journey, just like all these different bands, in different positions. Sometimes I was a stagehand, other times I was like the master electrician, or I was actually running the lights. And so, I started gaining experience, and I started getting recommended to other companies. And so I basically was a freelancer where anybody could call me and ask if I was available for a date and a certain position. And I would say, yes, I'm available, or no, I'm not available. which was great because if I felt like not working for a week, I could just, decide, okay, this is a week I'm going to take off, and I would just say, nope, not available that week. Um, and so, I was doing a lot of that. Some nights were better than others. I mean, there were nights where I did a loadout for a boxing match at MGM National Harbor, and I started at like, I want to say the call was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, maybe 10, and I worked until 5 a.m. And then I walked up the hill to the parking lot to my car, slept in the car for, if I was lucky, an hour and a half, and then I walked back down to the same venue to load in a completely different show that next morning at like 7 in the morning. And so like those hours were kind of rough sometimes. I mean, it was just the way that the industry was. It was, the longest I ever did was 36 hours straight, and I'll never do that again. That was horrible. That was really, really rough. Um but kind of while I was doing these gigs, and even though like I was enjoying, like I love the people I was working with, and the job was always something different and it was interesting. I had some every couple of months towards the end. Well, not towards the end, I'm still there, but there was a time where I started, questioning, is this what I want to do? Because I've always wanted a wife and kids, and it's really hard. Like those hours, either no girl's gonna stay with me working that kind of crazy stuff all the time, or I'm gonna be like the dad that's never there, at least at like regular times. I mean, I could always take off for important events, and like if the kids are playing soccer or something, I could just make sure that I was, you know, available and off to spend time with them for that. But that was just, it seemed like really rough and something that I should really consider and changing. And so like that would happen every couple of months. I would like every like 3 or 4 months I would kind of get like stuck in this rut and not like break down, but just like really be conflicted because I loved it so much. But you know there was something more important that I wanted in the future, and I wanted to you know plan for that and try to make moves in that kind of direction. And then I was at the time as well. I was taking a few classes at CCBC, like 2 or 3 classes a semester, nothing crazy. Um, and I was going for my business administration degree, associate's degree. And then I remember in March of 2020, I was on a job in Chinatown in New York City, and we were there doing this job at this really cool. It was like it used to be a bank, and they had like this huge vault that they had open, and it was just a really cool place. We were all joking like, "Oh yeah, like man, we're down in New York. We might get COVID or whatever." And I went to class the next week. I think that was like during the weekend, and then I had class on like Monday or Tuesday, and I was in class, and they were like, "Hey, the college is gonna shut down for 2 weeks with this whole COVID thing. So like we'll see you in 2 weeks or whatever. Check Blackboard for assignments." And I was like, okay, like maybe this is something. And then I started getting the calls coming in. I had my entire March was pretty much booked. April was fully booked. I was starting getting commencement calls for May, and I started getting calls saying, "Hey, like this job is canceled," or "Hey, this job has been pushed back." Pending seeing what's going on with this whole COVID thing. And yeah, then the whole industry shut down and all the work was gone. And obviously, that 2 weeks turned into 2 years or a year and a half or however long we were all stuck inside. And pretty much immediately after that, I finished up that semester, and I was like, okay, I was like, well, there's no work. I'm going to get this degree. So I switched to full-time school. I went from like taking 2 or 3 classes to taking, like 4 or 5, like full on schedule. And May of 21, work was starting to come back like late 2020, early 2021. I was starting to get a few jobs here and there. It was definitely not back to like fully open, booked all the time. But I finished all these jobs. And I finished up my degree, and I was like, all right, well, what am I gonna do with this degree? And I looked at, what kind of jobs you can get with a business management or business administration degree. Because I was thinking, all right, well, I've kind of made this decision. I put myself on this path and I need to continue doing it. But am I going to get a degree in this? It's like, is business administration what I want to do? I mean, I've already got my associates, so I guess I should just continue taking it that way. But my uncle happened to be moving at the time that I was making all of this decision, like in this like critical time of making a decision. And while he was moving, he had me help him, and that gave us a lot of time together, and I had talked to him about a bunch of stuff, but I had brought up the fact that I just graduated in May, and fall's coming up soon, and I have no idea what I want to do. I looked at all the business management, business administration jobs, and there was not a single thing that even piqued my interest in the least. It was like accounting or like office manager or like things like that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And he gave me what turned out to be a really good piece of advice that really helped me, which was take a look at any college website. It doesn't have to be one you're going to go to, but just take a look at a college website, go through all the degrees, and see if something piques your interest and check it out. And if it seems like something you're interested in and you would like, do that. And I was like, okay. And I was like, this is not going to like be bad that I have my like business associates and not in whatever thing I pick. He's like, no, you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. And so I made it all the way down to the C section, and I saw cybersecurity, and I was like, huh. And I was always been good with computers, and I mean the college, or not the college, but the concert industry is full of technology and computers and stuff like that. And so, I was like, huh. I was like, I never really thought about cybersecurity. Like, I knew about it, and I knew that it was like, like a big field, and it was, very important, but I didn't really know too much about it. And I popped it open and looked at the required courses for the major, and it said like all the entire list of classes. I think it was probably like 15 classes, 10 classes, and I looked at every single one of them. I was like, I want to do every single one of these classes. And right there was the moment that I realized that cybersecurity was exactly what I wanted to do. And so then it came down to, okay, well, where am I going to go to get my degree? And I had narrowed it down to Stevenson and University of Maryland Global Campus. And I decided that if I was really going to do this college thing and I was going to completely change this career and I was going to do all that, I wanted to go in person. And Stevenson happened to have a bunch of really good scholarships for transfer students. And, I had not a 4.0. I had like okay grades. I think I had like a 3.45, something like that. And the money made sense. I could work really hard doing the concert stuff on the weekends and throughout the summer. And, I could afford to pay tuition because I didn't want to go into student loans. I knew that for a fact. I didn't want to get anywhere near student loan debt. So yeah, it all kind of worked out, and I decided I wanted to go in person. And so, applied, and because CCBC has like a deal with them, I got immediately accepted, and I knew I was going to go. And, fall of 21, I started my time at Stevenson, and, here we are 5 semesters later, and, I'm finally at the end, which is kind of surreal. And while I was working there, or not working, while I was going to school at Stevenson, I made a bunch of really good friends. I have a really good friend group. And one of them, my friend Sophia, she also works at Exelon. And I needed an internship, and I wasn't going to pay for a summer one because of the fact that it was outside of normal the normal semester, and I'd have to pay like per class or per credit, and it was gonna be like an extra $2,000. And I was like, I'm not paying an extra $2,000 to do an internship. So my friend Sophia had said, hey, like you should sign up for this internship. I think you might like it here. I was like, okay. So I submitted my application, but I was like, that's for the summer, and who knows if that'll even work out. I'm not gonna put all my eggs in one basket. Let me see if I can figure out something for the for the spring, and I ended up talking to the chief information officer of the school, and I said, "Hey, do you have any internships in like networking or system admin?" And he said, "Actually, the network and infrastructure team does have an internship opening. If you want it, just reach out." And so I did, and I worked for free. I did like 8 hours a week for 16 weeks. I had a minimum number of hours that I had to do, and I did that whole internship. And I think it was just before I started that semester, I got a call from Exelon, and they said, "Hey, this is so and so from Exelon. We have your application for the summer internship. Are you still interested?" And I said, "Oh yeah." It had been months. I mean, I probably submitted my application in September or October, something like that. And they're like, "Are you still interested?" And I said, "Oh yeah, like absolutely." And they're like, "Great, well you have it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, awesome." And so I did that internship for the entire spring semester, and was getting ready for my internship that started in Exelon. And that kind of brings us where we are today, where my internship got extended, and it's looking like it might even turn into a full-time job. We'll see. There's nothing official yet, so not holding my breath until the piece of paper lands on my desk. But yeah, that's kind of like the long, windy road of how I got to what I'm doing now. And I think it's kind of important for people to realize, like I'm late to the game as far as it goes for college. I'm 25 and I'm finally graduating. But don't rush yourself into going to college just because. There's plenty of other smaller things that you can do, or you can go to trade school. I mean, there's so many options. And I'm not saying not to go to college. I'm saying go to college when you're ready. Don't force yourself into some 4-year program where you're spending like an insane amount of money on tuition every semester just because that's what everybody else is doing. Go to community college. Go to community college part-time and work somewhere and, feel things out. Try to find what's going to make you happy, because at the end of the day, who cares about, money's great, but happiness and enjoying what you do. And, even though every day is not going to be perfect at work, I look forward to working with the people that I work with, seeing what new challenge or new thing is going to happen that day at work. And, I think that's much more important. The money will come. If you get good at something, you're going to get paid well. And there's always opportunities to get paid well doing things. But yeah, don't rush into things. Take your time. When you're ready, things will fall into place. And that's kind of like what happened to me. I was finally ready to figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, and things fell into place. So yeah, that's how I got where I am.
Definitely a long but amazing explanation. Speaking of life and totally through life, what has been your biggest life lesson, and who is it from?
Well, this is an easy one to answer now because I already did this last night where I had to think for about 5 minutes. But the biggest life lesson that I've been given is from my grandmother, and she always used to tell me choices, 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 and consequences. You're going to make choices in life, and you need to be willing to accept the consequences, good or bad, of your actions and choices. And if you don't choose in life, life will choose for you, and you might not necessarily like what life chooses. And I think that's like the biggest thing. I mean, even small things like showing up to work early, like that choice, it's a small choice, and it might not seem like it has good consequences or, bad consequences to show up early or on time at work. I mean, obviously there could be bad consequences if you don't show up. But showing up early might not necessarily do anything to begin with, but you don't know who's seeing you walk into the office in the morning. You don't know, what kind of doors and opportunities something so small like that could open up. And you might be, there might be a new project that's starting at work, and people see just how good you are, and the fact that you show up on time, and they're like, you know what, let's give this guy a shot. Let's give him something to push him a little bit, and something a little bit more interesting, and see how he reacts, see how he handles the situation, and working with people. So there's choices like that, and then obviously there's bigger choices. Like I made a big choice to go to Stevenson, and obviously that has generally worked out good for me. I mean, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes, like you have a professor that you don't like, or a class is really challenging, or, things just going on. But yeah, that is the biggest thing. And I hope that other people really think about that. Stop and think for a second about the choice that you're going to make. And it can be anything. It can be something small. It can be something big. If you go to a party and you decide that you want to, you're obviously, like, if you're of age, I mean, if you're not of age, you shouldn't be drinking, but if you make that decision, be willing to accept the consequences that come with that decision. If you're going down the highway and you decide that you want to go 10 miles over the speed limit, that's your choice that you made, but be willing to deal with the consequences of, if you get seen by a cop and pulled over, you're getting a speeding ticket. And if you don't like that choice, then make a better. If you don't like that, if you don't like that consequence of that choice, make a better choice. So that's my number one life advice.
Yeah, every action has consequences. What has been a super big life decision that you've had to make that doesn't, like, not that you've already mentioned? So not you going to Stevenson or you deciding to quit and change.
Did I do this one yesterday?
No.
Oh. What is one big life decision that I chose
That you haven't already mentioned?
that I haven't already mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the outcome of it, I guess? Is it supposed to be like something good, or?
Doesn't matter. Just what's a really big decision that you've had to make. It could be your hardest, could be your biggest, could be something cool. I can think of one that's cool that's just next door, but
a big decision that I had to make. I think one of the big decisions that I had to make in life is, I guess I already talked about it, was quitting that job, that first job that I had. That was a big decision because, on one hand, I liked the people I worked with mostly. I didn't even hate the boss that I was working for. I mean, we had our disagreements on things, but I didn't hate him. But just making that decision that the situation that I was in, regardless of how much I enjoyed the work or enjoyed the people or thought what we were doing was really cool, the situation just got to a point where I was almost forced to make, I was actually pretty much forced to make a decision for myself on, do I sign a contract and, really, really do this thing and just deal with it? Or do I say, what's enough's enough, and stand up for myself and just leave? And obviously I left, and that is really, if I hadn't left, I mean, who knows how different my life would be. I mean, maybe I would have had a job through COVID. Maybe he would have kept me employed. I don't know. And maybe I would have never made that decision to leave. And then during COVID, I wouldn't have made the decision to go to school full time. And then, that would have not necessarily put me into the place where I was graduating and had no clue what I wanted to do. And that, that choice would have led, it's like a domino effect, that one choice, even though I didn't realize it, was the very beginning of the very first domino that made the decision that I went out into the industry where I wasn't working with one company. I had to work with a bunch of companies, and that was where my paycheck came from multiple people and not just one person. and that led to me meeting a bunch of people, and also when COVID hit that and all that work went away, that made me go to school full time. And then my uncle was moving, and I happened to be in the situation where I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. Then I chose cyber, and from cyber I went to Stevenson, and from Stevenson I met my friend Sophia, and Sophia told me about Exelon, and now here I am. Hopefully I'm graduating in a couple weeks, and hopefully from there I'll have a job there. And I don't know how long I'll be there. I mean, I really like it, and I could see myself being there for a very long time. And, you know, who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But that one decision, I'd have to say, was probably, at least for this journey and this conversation, is one of the bigger ones that I've had to take. And obviously it's put me on a path that I'm happy with.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely doing a lot better. I will say, shout out to Sophia. Sophia's great. But speaking of Sophia and your friends, what do you look for in people, or like, partners, bosses, just people in general?
So what I really look for in people and friends is just people that are, honest and real. And I mean that in the fact that, like, when you meet me, what you see is what you get. I don't try to make myself somebody I'm not. I don't try to fit in with the crowd or blend in, or, go with the flow just because everybody's, doing one thing. I try to pick friends that not necessarily like agree with everything that I think, because I mean, what fun would that be? I mean, what's the point of having friends if you don't get any different viewpoints? I mean, I have friends that I don't agree with everything on, and we're still great friends. That's what friendship is. It's getting different perspectives. It's being able to have conversations. It's being able to have people that you can trust. And if you have people that, you know, lie or try to make themselves look like something they're not and aren't just honest and real, then what's the point? Why have that friend? I'd rather have 2 or 3 really, really good, solid friends that I could trust my life with than to have a group of 30, 40, 50 friends that, yeah, like we go hang out and stuff, but I couldn't trust them with a small secret, let alone, if I'm feeling down or like there's something going on in my life, that I can't tell them that because they would just use it against me in turn. So I look for people that are honest and kind and, are just themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, that definitely. What what's the end goal for you besides a very nice house on a mountain?
End goal for me, I guess I'll just copy what I said yesterday. I mean, and the end goal is eventually I'm gonna die and be done. So that's like that's the very end. Eventually this life's gonna come to a close. Hopefully not anytime soon. Um, but I had a good conversation right before. It was the executive vice president of like the, I don't know what they call it, like the silo or the whatever they call it in business. In my chain of command, he was pretty high up there. He was 2 levels below the CEO. And right before he retired, I ended up being able to set up a meeting with him, and I got to talk to him. And he's a really great guy. Gave me some really good advice, but something that he said to me that I thought was very interesting, a very interesting thing to do, is that you look back a year and see where you were and think, a year ago, did I ever think I would be where I am today? And in a year, where do I think I will be? In 5 years, where do I think I will be? Where in 10 years, where do I think I will be? So, looking at a year, a year ago, let me see. Well, at this point now, it would have been a year ago. I had no clue I was going to be at Exelon. I had no idea I was going to do that internship. In fact, right around now is when I was applying maybe a few weeks ago would have been like the 1 year anniversary of me applying. But, I had no clue what I was going to do or where I was going to be in a year. And now here I am looking at a possible job at this place. So a year from now, I hope that I'm you know, in the job. And a year from there. Yeah, so like a year ago, didn't even know if I was going to be, didn't even know if I was going to, barely knew what Exelon was, to be honest. And here I am now a year later. I'm looking at possibly having a job. So I think in 1 year from now, I hope to, be at Exelon and be doing really well. Maybe have worked on some really cool projects on top of my normal day-to-day duties. And then, looking down the road 5 years, I hope that, I've moved up to maybe either tier 2 or, maybe not a manager, but maybe a supervisor or, yeah, in 5 years, I think I'll probably be either like a supervisor or maybe doing, something a little different, a little interesting within cybersecurity. Not do tier 1. I'll have moved up to, more advanced roles. And then 10 years, I mean, who knows? I could be an actual manager of something. I could be, working on some sort of special project. I could be doing a bunch of different things. I could be doing a whole different thing in cybersecurity than what I'm doing now. I mean, it's just such a big field that there's so many things you can do. It's almost like trying to pick a career after you've picked a career with how many different things you can do. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds, but I have no real idea. I'm just kind of here for the ride and see where life takes me and make decisions and choices as I go, and hopefully I'm satisfied and happy with those choices.
Certainly hope so. Yeah, thanks,
for
Chris.
your sake.
Yeah, and for my sake. Thanks, Chris, for being on. You've been great. I hope to see you very soon. Again, I'm sure it'll be real soon. But yeah,
I'm sure it will be.
Thanks for being on. You were great.
The second time in a row.
Second time in a row. 2 days in a row. That's how much.
I would just like to point out before this episode's over that I love the fact that this has happened both times after midnight when I'm ready to go to bed, and he's like, "Oh man, we gotta do our thing." Let's see, what time is it right now?
11:48.
Oh, 11:48.
Not midnight.
So sorry.
You're a liar,
everybody.
Chris.
Sorry.
You're a liar. All right.
Have a good one, everybody. Remember, make good choices and don't rush yourself into things.
Yep. Make good choices. Don't have a brother.